Welcome to the 5th episode of Mayor's Mixtape, and I'm Haley Robinson, Director of Public Affairs for the City of Pueblo.
Heather Graham, City of Pueblo Mayor, still the mayor today.
Still the mayor. And behind the mic,
Brian McCain, Chief of Staff.
That way we don't have just a random voice popping in. So you can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Buzzsprout, local channel 17. Basically, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find this one. So don't forget to like, subscribe. Also, if you're interested in suggesting a topic or submitting a question for the mayor, you can email mayor@pueblo.us, and we will check out your topics, suggestions, things like that. Let's get into it, Mayor. Okay, so last week was a pretty heavy week here at the city. Before we get too far into the episode, I wanted to see if you had any updates on our 3 officers that had been involved in the shooting last week and their recovery, or anything else you wanted to share.
Yeah, today it's been a week, since a very terrible incident last Tuesday night. Luckily, all officers are okay, as okay as they can be, right? So we have 2 officers that went home last week, and we have an officer who is still in the hospital. All 3 of them have a long road of recovery ahead of them, so we're continuously thinking about them, being supportive to them, and trying to help them and their families in any way that we can. We've had a great community outpour for our law enforcement, and it truly means a lot to the department and to the chief and to myself on the community and how they've really come and back the blue in this case.
Yeah, we had a lot of local community support, but I know we also had support from around the state. We saw
around the United States.
Sure.
We've seen, the chief's press conference from California all the way to, it was in the New York Post on Friday. So it's good. It's great coverage for what truly matters, right? It's unfortunate that it took officers being shot multiple times to wake this community up. But here we are, and let's hope that something good comes out of it.
Yeah. Okay. So last night we had a regular city council meeting, and we normally kind of do a little bit of a city council recap. Last night at the city council work session, there was an update regarding legislation. Anything you'd like to speak to directly at this point?
I think we're still waiting I think Chief of Staff can give a little better update on that.
The failure to appear, which is the one that was the first that kind of kicked off this whole thing, really, with us getting involved. I believe it's on second reading today. They debated the Senate Bill 3, which was the gun bill, as everybody calls it, that passed last night on the House side. So the failure to appear, Senate Bill 62, it should be up today. From there's another failure to appear bill that we've talked about, and it sounds like that one might die in committee, and then we've heard rumblings that there might be a third failure to appear bill introduced that will impact our municipal court, so we're monitoring that. The extreme indifference bill, that is up on Monday the 31st, so this coming Monday. We've been pretty vocal on that, both as a council, as the mayor, as a city, along with other communities, so we'll update you on that one next week. And right now, they're kind of in the crunch time because the long bill comes out, which is the budget. So they're basically trying to push everything through as fast as they can. So some of them may not even come up. They may shift their priorities, concentrate on other things. And then we'll also see some late bills introduced if they get permission to put them in. And that's where we're at. Okay,
great. Thanks for the update. Additionally, there was discussion about Pueblo's economic engine. Much of the discussion last night was centered around permitting, the process with the City of Pueblo, other government agencies. Did you want to follow up on this work session presentation?
Yeah, so this has been kind of an ongoing issue in the city with CDOT, specifically when we're talking about the Boulevard corridor, because it is a state highway. It is controlled by CDOT. You get your access permit from CDOT. You do not get it from the City of Pueblo. And so for the last several months, I've been working with a couple of different developers who are on the south side of the of Pueblo Boulevard, where you have the Culver's, the Whataburger, Starbucks, Quick Trip coming, Maverick. So all of those different businesses that are located on the boulevard. As you know, there's no stoplights in between Prairie and I-25. Or there's one on
Northern? No.
No.
No, down at the
right
other
before
end.
you get on.
Yeah, there is.
But
it's a long stretch.
It's a long
without
stretch.
A big
CDOT
light.
is requiring these businesses, essentially whatever business gets their CO first, to put in additional stoplights, degress and increasing lane, medians, sidewalks, all of the infrastructure that you need up and down the boulevard for traffic safety.
Yeah.
This is really not fair to the developer, whichever developer gets their permit first, right?
Okay.
Because all of the burden will be placed on that developer.
On that one entity.
Okay. So the city staff has been working with the developers, with CDOT, to try to come up with a plan on the total cost for the infrastructure for that whole part of the boulevard. And the city would come up with a developmental agreement for that infrastructure to be placed so that these businesses can open. We can attract more businesses since it's such a hot area of development.
Incentive?
Yep, a city incentive.
Okay.
Because we want to see sales tax. We want to see businesses. Right. We want to see people come to Pueblo. We want to see people get off I-25 right there and make a stop to get gas or to one of the fast food restaurants or come more inner city, if you will. And so, I had brought this topic up to the city council at the retreat, knowing that there was an issue. These projects are several millions of dollars, like upwards of $15 million for the entire boulevard to get the infrastructure that it needs for all of the businesses to operate. I had pitched the idea to the city council to use half-cent sales tax. Regardless if it's bringing primary jobs into the community or not, it's bringing jobs, it's bringing sales tax dollars. It's bringing more businesses, which we know we are in a dire need of. So this came up with the idea, pitches city council at the retreat. Some of the city councils were on board. Some of them told me we shouldn't be incentivizing fast food restaurants. So it was really interesting last night when the developer showed up, and now all hands are on deck, and now they want to see the community. What can we do as the community? So. I think that's going to help. I think that it's really going to be able to push getting this project started. We talked about it being an urban renewal district, which it is, but the urban renewal district will run out of time before any of these entities are built. Okay. So they're not going to generate that additional TIF revenue. So we've talked about expanding the district. We've talked about bonding the infrastructure, taking a loan from half-cent sales tax to get the infrastructure in the ground. So this is something that my department and myself have been working on for probably 6 months.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a new topic.
It was not a new topic.
City council last night.
Some people thought it was, but it was not a new topic.
Got it.
These businesses have been held up, and it's unfortunate, but they're not being held up by the city. They're being held up by CDOT and their access permitting, because their access permit is onto the boulevard. So they have the right to request certain infrastructure to go in, and it's unfortunate because it bottlenecks the development that's happening on that side of town. So
do you think that's why we haven't seen the development in years prior on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're talking $15 million for just that stretch of the boulevard, that's an additional $15 million that's on the cost of the developers.
Right.
And if there's not some way, some agreement, or, some fee that they each pay for this infrastructure to be going in, whoever pulls the permit first is the one who's going to have to pay for it, and that's not fair.
Okay.
It's unfortunate. So we're going to keep working. Hopefully we're going to figure out a way to get the infrastructure paid for so we can bring its McDonald's, Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, Schwab Tires, Quick Trip, Circle K. There's
quite a few businesses.
Quite a few businesses that are going to be held up because of these access permits.
Your name's close to 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying and for the update.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened last night at City Council during the regular session, we had a recognition for the Best in Colorado Award with our aviation director, Greg Pedroza of Pueblo Memorial Airport, Mike Skinner with Dibble Engineering, and Mike Dietz of Pyramid Construction. This was from Tom Peterson. He's the executive director of the Colorado Asphalt Paving Association. And you were actually at the awards ceremony on February 19th when this was originally presented. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that awards ceremony was like, or what this means for the airport?
Yeah, it was awesome. You know, we're not always awarded awards on asphalt, right? It was really cool to be a part of. And this region, too, in southern Colorado, roads within the city, the airport, right outside of the city. I think that they received 4 different awards for asphalt paving. Our own airport received a big award for asphalt paving. And so, you know, there's always lots of chatter in the community about paving roads, road rehabilitation, what that looks like. And so it was nice to be honored for something that somebody sees that we're doing right, especially at the airport, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to talk about economic development at the airport, bringing in a new airline at the airport, and so we want to make sure that our runways are tip-top shape, and so that we can attract new businesses and better airlines to come into the community. And we got an update this week,
Right. Yeah,
from the federal government.
Yeah, we heard about new essential air service.
Yeah.
So our new airline provider, Denver Air Connection, that was announced last Tuesday. And actually yesterday they announced ticket sales. That's 12 weekly flights from Denver to Pueblo and connections to other airlines so that folks can travel elsewhere. And that was, I mean, we've been waiting for that for a long time.
Yeah, I think Chief of Staff can talk more about how long we've been waiting. And
Yeah, give us a little bit of a, I don't know, like history update or tutorial for those that don't really understand essential air service or how this process works, maybe.
Yeah, so these smaller airports, so kind of the short story back history of it, the federal government used to regulate airlines up until 1978. So to have a certificate for your airline, you had to fly twice a day, 7 days a week, and then in 1978 they deregulated that. So the fear was these smaller airports like Pueblo, your Lamars, your Alamosas, Grand Junctions, that would just kill it because the airlines would pull out and just fly from Denver. You know, they wanted the big contract. So the federal government put in essential air service, and what it is an airline will bid to the federal government and the Department of Transportation to receive this contract in which they will fly out of these smaller airports twice a day, sometimes more, and the government will subsidize those flights. So the federal government wants to pay these airlines to fly regardless. If there's one person on the plane or it's full, the federal government will subsidize those seats for it. So through the process, different airlines, I think there were 5 or 6 total, put in this bid for the essential air service contract for Pueblo. So Pueblo actually has no say in it. Initially, we held community outreach events, stakeholder meetings of what people wanted, what the city wanted, citizens, et cetera. And we went with Breeze. You know, Breeze we thought would be something different. They wanted to fly to Las Vegas and Phoenix. But at the end of the day, the federal government and Department of Transportation looks at all criteria and all aspects of it, and they felt that Denver Air Connection was the best fit for Pueblo. And I don't know when they start flying. I haven't seen that yet. But May 1st. So they will be flying 12 times a week out of the Pueblo airport to Denver, round-trip flights. And again...
And I saw yesterday flights are $59 round trip.
$59.
So $59 to fly
awesome.
Pueblo to Denver.
Yeah.
That's way less than the gas it's going to take me or, you know, potentially the parking I'm going to have to pay.
No, it's going to be cheaper if you get your gas in Pueblo, because we have so many gas stations that it's driving the price of gas down.
It's true.
It is true.
But there's free parking at the Pueblo airport. I have to pay if I go to Denver. So,
True.
You know, a lot cheaper.
Pros and cons.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exciting news. We're really excited. Next month we'll be welcoming Denver Air Connection here in Pueblo and have like a big kickoff so that folks can get more information about that. So very excited. Okay, Mayor, let's jump into a hot topic
Oh, yeah.
that everybody really wants you to talk about, but we haven't talked about yet on this podcast.
Why haven't we talked about it? Because it doesn't exist?
Well, so technically it doesn't, right? The idea of it just exists. For those of you listening, wondering, what are we talking about? Grocery tax.
Graham's grocery tax.
Yeah. So before we dive into the actual grocery tax details, let's first talk about city's sales tax rate, because that's kind of where this all started.
Sure.
Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of what it looks like with our general fund and how the city collects sales tax or our revenue generation for the city?
So the majority of the city's revenue generation comes from our city sales tax.
Okay.
Our city sales tax is 3.7% in total. So 3% goes to the general fund. That's how we pay for all the services, all the operating. City infrastructure is 3%. So 3 pennies on every dollar that you spend in the community comes back to the city.
Okay.
0.2 is our public safety sales tax.
That was
passed.
2B.
It was 2B. It was a ballot issue that I ran in 2022. That pays for 24 officers. It also pays for all their body-worn cameras and new technology. That generates $4 to $5 million a year, but that money is earmarked specifically for public safety. Can't use it for anything else.
Okay.
And then 0.5, which is our half-cent sales tax, goes to Pedco.
Okay.
So the City of Pueblo only collects 3%. That tax rate has been the same since 1972.
Okay.
So a long time, right?
It's 2025.
It's
been the same
2025,
since
so
72.
50 years.
Got it.
Since we have increased sales tax. Before that, sales tax in 1956 was 1%. And then it raised to 3% in 1972. And we have not raised sales tax that goes to the general fund. We have had the 2B, and we have had Pedco, or half-cent sales tax dollars, that are earmarked and allocated to certain funds, certain projects within the city can only be spent. So we can't use any of that money for general fund purposes. So 3%, it's a very low sales tax when you look at all other cities in Colorado. Also, when you're looking at other cities in Colorado, they have several different types of taxing. So they might have a food consumption tax, right? They might, which is the grocery tax. They might have a public improvement tax for capital improvement projects or roads. They might have special district taxes. If you go, and you're in Denver and you're in downtown Denver and you're in the milk market area around Union Station, several blocks in that district have a special tax that just helps go to pay for improvements within that district. So
within that specific area.
Yep. So when you look at, we've been looking at what other communities are doing, how are they generating more revenue, what do you have that's not so volatile, that's just not $1 amount coming in to the city that fluctuates up and down depending on how people are spending in the community. So when I took the budget to City Council in November, we had a lot of conversations about revenues, expenditures, and I believe that the City of Pueblo has a revenue problem. When you don't raise your sales tax for 50 years, it's crazy that the city has been able to operate the way that it's been operating. In 2020, we know COVID happened. We know there was tons of federal stimulus dollars that came. People were spending. Our reserves had never been so high. Our savings, our budget has never grown this big, and now it's $130 million steadily because of inflation, because of the money that came in through federal stimulus. So we really have to take a look at what we're going to do revenue-wise in order to create a larger tax base so that we can do more capital projects, so that we can pay our employees better, so that we can have better amenities for our community. And I do not believe that 3 cents on every dollar is going to get us to where we need. It's going to be hard to attract businesses. It's going to be hard to attract companies. It's going to be hard to attract families here. It's going to be hard to keep businesses and existing families here that we already have when you don't have the amenities that you see up and down the Front Range and other communities. It's really hard to beautify your community if you don't have the dollars to spend. So City Council asked us to come forward with some solutions. What could you do? How could we generate more dollars? The only way that the city makes money is on taxes and fees. That's how we pay our people. That's how we provide services. And since we are 100% service driven, that's what we do.
Sure.
Police, fire, public works, streets, parks. It's a service that you're
right.
provided, right?
Yeah.
It's a quality of life. Going to the parks, going to the pools, the kiddie rides, having a nice street to drive on, having your streets plowed during the summer, all of that is paid for by taxes and fees that come into the city. That's how we make our money. And when you don't increase that, it's really hard to keep up with inflation, the cost of goods, the cost of everything that's been on the rise. And so City Council asks us, hey, Mayor Graham, can you bring some solutions? Can you bring what other cities are doing, right? So our sales tax department put together a whole slide deck. We came to City Council and presented, I think it was early in January, just some different options and what those potentials could be, right? So if we raise sales tax overall, we would be taxing every good that you buy. You wouldn't be taxing food because food is exempt, but we would be clothing, shoes, cars, retail, anything that you buy that has sales tax, that would increase, right? So instead of increasing tax overall over everything, we looked at something that the City of Pueblo is not currently taxing, which is food. And, people are very upset about, taxing food. They think it's inhumane. They think that I shouldn't do that.
Well, and we admit, like, groceries are expensive.
We do, yeah.
Costs are on the rise.
Yeah. But it's an additional revenue source that we're not currently taxing that won't be so volatile, won't be so up and down. It'll be streamlined because it's not being taxed right now. And
is this something that other communities do?
Let me tell you about the other what communities do it, right? So Arvada, Aspen, Avon, Blackhawk, Boulder, Breckenridge, Brighton, Broomfield, Castle Rock, Central City, Cherry Hills, Cortez, Craig, Crested Butte, Delta, Durango, Evans, Federal Heights, Fort Collins, Frisco, Glenwood Springs, Golden, Grand Junction, Greeley, Gunnison, Gypsum, Lafayette, Lakewood, Lamar, Longmont, Louisville, Montrose, Crested Butte, North Glen, Parker, Ridgeway, Rifle, Silverthorne, Snowmass, Steamboat Springs, Sterling, Telluride, Thornton, Vale, Westminster, Wheat Ridge, Windsor, Winter Park, and Woodland Park. So there's 66.
They all tax.
They all tax
their
food. Yep, they all tax food. Their tax rate on food on average is about 3.5%.
Okay.
So it's a significant amount of communities that tax food. They have another revenue source to bring into their coffers.
Sure.
And for example, if the city was to tax food at 3.5%, we would receive an additional $13 to $15 million a year at 3.5%.
That's pretty significant.
Yep. So what that looks like on somebody's grocery bill is if your bill is $200, you're going to pay anywhere from $5 to $7 in tax that you don't currently pay. Which I understand. It's $5 to $7 dollars more. It could be that extra item for somebody that you'd like to purchase. I totally understand that. And so when we've been looking at kind of what other communities do, one of the communities that I really like and what their ballot language says and what they've been able to do is Greeley. So their sales tax, their tax on food is earmarked for specifics. So it's for streets, park, recreational facilities, and public buildings and roads. So it's all for infrastructure. They use it to fund their capital improvement. Their tax has passed every 5 years since 1990.
Okay.
So
last 35 years.
Yes, but it's all about accountability too. They're able to show their community that if you grant us this tax, we're going to do X, Y, and Z over the next 5 years. And they lay out projects that they're going to.
So it's specifically outlined each time it goes to the ballot.
Yep, it's. I don't know if it's outlined specifically, but it talks about earmarked for those certain projects.
It has to
and
be
those
a parks
projects
project,
are
a
capital.
road.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not going necessarily to wages. It's really going to help the infrastructure within the community. So this was just one idea that was brought from the city council. In Greeley, they also have a program. If you are low income, if you can provide that you've lived in the city for 10 months and you can provide your financials to their finance department, you'll get $100 rebate for yourself and each of your family members every year out of the same fund, so that the hardship of the tax is lessened for those community members that have a hard time already.
So like a family of 4, if you're at a certain threshold, that would be $400 back each
from the
person?
city. 100 for...
Yeah, so
400 for one family.
For each person. I'm a family of 4. That's $400 back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's
potential relief.
Also relief.
For folks.
Yeah, and potential helpful ways. But this is just one idea that we have brought to city council. It's definitely turned into much more than it was.
It's pretty controversial.
It is.
Folks get really heated on social media.
Yep.
I think. You've done, close to 8 to 10 news interviews about it.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of discussion about it.
Yeah, and the discussion will continue. The idea is to increase revenues in the community so that we can have capital, we can have amenities.
I wanted to talk a little bit about capital improvement projects.
Yeah.
I know, that's also another really hot topic for Puebloans, for our citizens. We receive folks all the time asking, when is my road going to be paved? When are you going to fix this sidewalk or this pothole? When can I see a new dog park or whatever amenity that they want to see? So can you kind of talk to us about what capital improvements look like and that fund?
So that's all your infrastructure in the city, whether it's parks, roads, building maintenance,
Sure.
Anything the public touches that's paid for by the public, capital. Okay. Mostly infrastructure. So, in 2023, the city allocated $22.1 million out of general fund to capital improvement project.
Okay.
We had money at the time. That was, the tail end of COVID, so people were still spending. It was affordable to the city to do that much in capital. $10 million of it went straight to roads. The other 12 went to other capital projects within the city.
And that was due to our Tabor funds.
It was due to our Tabor funds,
and being able to debruce.
So the city debruced. They didn't have to return the funds to the community. They allowed the city to keep it and invest it into infrastructure. So $22 million in 2023. In 2024, $12.5 million. That was kind of the end of the money that we still had. And last year, I was only able to allocate $3 million to capital because we just could not afford it.
For this calendar year.
For this calendar year.
2025, we will...
$3 million.
$3 million down from 22 just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we talk about increasing revenue, it's to increase revenue so that we can continue to provide infrastructure needs, capital improvement projects, and amenities to the computer to the community. And you can just see right there just the decrease in what we're allowed to invest into capital just in 2023. That left us still with a $8.7 million deficit in 2025's budget. Sales tax was up 1.1% in January, but we got to be way up in
January
order
of this year.
Yep, we got to be way up in order to be able to provide capital for 2026's budget. We only have about $19 million left in our reserves.
Okay.
That's the low end of what we've had over the last 5 years. Some years, there was 40, 30, 20 million. So 19 million. So when we talk about the city having to take money essentially out of its savings account every year to make sure our bills are paid at the city, that $19 million isn't going to go very far. So that's...
Maybe another year or two?
Yeah, maybe another year or two, depending on what wages are. So as wages compound every year, health insurance costs raise. We see that at the city, as well as when people see it in their households. And so that's something that we have to look at. Where are we going to make cuts? What are we going to do? And so it's been an ongoing conversation. I hope to, on the podcast, talk a little bit more about the budget. In the next few weeks, we're going to be kicking off our budget season here at the city. Where
when is that?
Probably the end of this month, really. We've already kind of started having conversations.
Do you ever not talk about the budget?
No, it's every day. I carry a budget book everywhere I go. Just so I can make sure that I'm answering the questions correctly and making sure I'm doing a complete overview on how we're spending money in the city. So we have a lot of work to do, but I feel pretty confident that people want better amenities. They want better infrastructure. They want our city employees to be paid. The City of Pueblo was like in the top 5, one of the top 5 largest employee providers in the community. And so we've talked about employee layoffs. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure people are employed. We want to make sure people are employed well. We want to make sure that they're spending their tax dollars in our community. Right. And it's, we see it come full circle. So they're hard conversations to have. It's unfortunate that I'm the one that has to have them. But I want to make sure that the city is set. There's going to be enough money in our reserves for my term. But for whoever comes in after me, the city council for years to come, the city employees, and just for the community for years to come, I want to make sure that you're better off now than you were before, and that you have money to spend, and that you have money to make purchases and do projects and have amenities that our community deserves. It's really why we're talking about this now. We're not waiting till the last minute. So we started these conversations last year. We're going to continue the conversations, but the idea behind the grocery tax, the increase in sales tax overall, this is where it came from. It came from the city council asking me to provide solutions to a problem. That's my job as the mayor. I'm happy, to do it, and I'm happy to work with them to look at what's the best way forward for the community. No tax issues can be passed without a vote of the people.
Yeah, it has to go on the ballot for us to consider
go on the
first.
Ballot. Will be something, whatever we decide to do will be presented to City Council. City Council will have to approve the language, approve for it to be on the ballot. And then the community will vote on, do you want your tax dollars raised? I will tell you that in 2022, when I ran 2B, the public safety sales tax, for the additional officers and their technology, that passed 76% of their community. The community wants to fund the police department. They want to fund law enforcement. They want to fund public safety. So, people understand it. It's there.
The need for it.
It's the need, yeah. And we wouldn't be coming to the community if it wasn't a need. It's not going to be a need next year. We have enough funds to get us through next year, but it'll be a need in the future. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing that I've heard a lot as far as the grocery tax, can you talk a little bit about one of the questions we get is, why don't we tax restaurants?
Yeah.
You're a restaurant owner, right? You have 3 restaurants here in town. So why don't we tax restaurants?
You do well. You tax the restaurants. Collect the sales tax for the prepared food. If a grocery,
so we already tax restaurants.
We already tax restaurants.
Okay.
If a tax measure passed where groceries would be taxed, restaurants would pay a substantial amount on the food that they're purchasing from wholesalers.
from your food providers. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, or Sam's or wherever you go to make ends meet.
Your wholesale or whatever. Okay.
So people pay sales tax already on prepared food. They just do not pay sales tax on raw food from grocery stores. So when you go to McDonald's, when you go to Graham's Grill, when you go to Angelo's, you pay sales tax.
Got it. Okay.
They pay it. They collect it for the city, submit it to us on the 20th of every month. So you pay tax on food that's prepared at a restaurant. Okay. It's not a service tax.
There's a lot of folks
who are
confused.
Tax. Yeah. Right. It's a sales tax. It's not a service fee. You're not paying it to the restaurant for them to prepare your meal. You're paying it on the food that is prepared.
Understood.
At 7.6%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, we did have a couple, we had a question prepared or sent in from one of our listeners. The question was, has the city ever thought about a tiny home community? Obviously, there would have to be approvals, but has anyone ever considered that, and what would that look like?
That's a great question. When I first got into office, you, I think, came with me to Denver.
I did.
And we went and looked at a pallet shelter home facility off of Peoria in Denver and what that would look like. We took a couple tours.
Yeah.
Met with a couple pallet shelter companies. Pallet shelters, the tiny homes. Right in the middle of all this, there was a grant application that the city could apply for in order to receive funding for tiny homes, pallet shelters. And so the city applied. We received. We were a recipient of the grant. We were notified this year that we received the funds. And so I've actually been working on trying to purchase some of these tiny homes or pallet shelters. Yep. In order to be transitional housing for our shelter on 4th Street. We've already gone through the zoning process to get the land in between the 728 West 4th Street and 710 West 4th Street, that big piece of property where we knocked down the house and the parking lot.
Sure.
We've already worked to get that rezoned. We've been working with a company in Pueblo who's been helping us look at different kinds of modular small housing and what could fit on the property and what would be the best use of these grant dollars. And so that is in the works. I'm hoping that we see that come full circle by the end of this year. And so, yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that we've looked at. That is the only area within the city of Pueblo that is currently zoned
for a tiny home?
S1 for this type of housing. And so we're going to continue to work towards getting some of those tiny homes put in that area.
Okay, so essentially that would work as like transitional housing for folks that maybe were leaving the shelter or a stopgap before folks secure an apartment,
permanent housing,
house.
Yeah,
sure,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's 4 walls and a door of your own, and
secured their own.
You could have a pet.
Okay,
yeah, it's
cool.
It's a great opportunity for us.
Okay, well, so that was a really good question.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Great. Okay. Well, with that, I think we're gonna wrap for today.
Just want to remind people that I am hosting a town hall, hall tomorrow at 5:45 at Barkman Library.
That's Wednesday.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Depending on when they're gonna watch it. So that's why.
That's Wednesday at 5:45, the 26th.
Okay.
President Aliff and I will be there to answer questions about Black Hills, the ballot issue that's coming on May 6th to citizens in Pueblo, City of Pueblo. And so if anybody wants to get their questions answered, that would be a great time to show up and ask questions, and we'd be happy to answer what we can at this point because we don't have the study back.
When's the study coming back?
First week in April. We're hoping we have it. Yeah.
And there'll be a work session presentation April 7th.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay.
That's it. Sorry.
Thanks for that reminder. Okay. So, again, we invite everybody subscribe, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Buzzsprout, wherever you get your podcasts, local channel 17. And you can submit your questions or topics for next week at mayor@pueblo.us via email. And we'll see you next week.